Welcome to Awakening Mindfulness at Work, a conversation that matters. I'm Pierre
And I'm Sarah Killeen. We are bringing to you conversations and practices to cultivate presence, calm, and balance in the workplace.
So let's begin right here, right now. Hello, Sarah.
Hi,
I'm
Pierre.
looking forward to our topic today, which really relates to what's going on in the world around us. There is so much happening. There are conflicts, there are wars, there's suppression everywhere, and of course, a lot of suffering. And some people are directly impacted by this, some people through family and friends. And even if we're not directly impacted, we feel the impact by witnessing everything that's going on. So, one question comes up: how do we stay strong and grounded during these difficult times? Now, this is a big topic, but in our conversation today, I'd like to specifically focus on one aspect of this topic, which is how do we avoid becoming entangled in resentment or even hatred towards the people who are causing or contributing to the harm that we see. So, um, now adding a couple thoughts, and then I want your take on the topic, and then I'll add a few more reflections. So, first, resentment is can arise pretty naturally and actually justifiably when we see that important universal values that matter to us and to the whole world being violated. Things like justice, like respect, compassion. So the thought I'd like to share. Well, actually, before I do that, just giving you a chance to give me your first take or anything you'd like to interject, and then I'll come back and share a few things.
Yes, what a big topic. I like that you asked a very specific question, because there are so many questions we could ask ourselves in such turmoil. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to diving into that. Before we do that, something came up for me when you started talking about the topic. It's a quote, actually. It's something that James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, I've mentioned him in the past. I always really like his newsletters. He shared that a few weeks ago, and he said that negative examples always spread farther and faster than the positive examples. So in a world that big, you'll find at least one negative example every day. But don't let the existence of a bad example ruin your faith in the world. Good news is always quieter than bad news. So I really liked that, because it is true that news can be so overwhelming. And when we talk about there is so much happening in the world, a lot of it we know from the news, right? From being online, from reading, from watching. And there is the bias towards the negative there. So I think it is good, before we dive into this conversation as well, to put a little flag out there saying, there is still something really positive about the world, and that's a completely different conversation. But that might be just the antidote that we need when we explore those really difficult
Right.
events, is remembering that, resourcing in the fact that there is also beauty and joy and love and all those things. So I just wanted to say that at first. We can come back to that at the end of the episode, but that might be the antidote.
Thank you. Yeah, and this ties up to this topic very, very nicely, and something we'll probably get back to. So, what I wanted to, the first insight I want to share is we cannot simply say to resentment, go away. This is not likely to work. So resentment towards injustice, for instance, or any of those values being violated, that is justifiable. This is something, these violating these values is like threatening the core of our human existence. So instead of pushing resentment away, I would invite us to actually make room for it, to acknowledge it, to allow it. If we were to put this into words, it may be something like, yes, something painful is happening, and yes, this matters. So I'd like to put that in kind of in perspective and say this is part one, but there is an important next step, which is part two in this endeavor. And part two is to realize that we can't stay in resentment indefinitely and keep feeding it. If we do, it could consume us, it could consume our energy, it could narrow our perspective, and actually it can magnify the stress that we feel, and it makes us ineffective at facing whatever the challenges are. So in part two, it is to turn into constructive action, and no matter how small the action might be, actions that are aligned with our values, and let that be the shift from resentment. So first acknowledging the pain, making room for it. And this may take some time. This is not, oh, we acknowledge and we move on. This is like being with it, making enough space, and then the passage into doing something.
Yes, I'm all very valid steps of the process. I think something that can happen when we are touching suffering that big or fear that big is we can fall into despair as well. I think that can be part of the loop, part of the process. Despair, grief. We see that also, with echo despair or grief, people that are advocating so much and facing such intense backlashes and experiencing a lot of grief. That can be really scary to touch. So the first part, what you were touching on in terms of accepting and being willing to be intimate with those emotions can be really overwhelming for some people. And that is when we need to learn how to, what we call titrate, right? So maybe dip a toe in it. And then as soon as we notice that it's too much, maybe, stepping back and doing something else that, resets us a little bit, bringing a little bit of joy, hugging someone that we love. So resourcing and then dipping a toe again. So it's not linear, I think, in that sense. It can be a lot, and it doesn't have to happen all at once, right? I think that's an important thing to mention. So that's
that's
for
a
the
great
first part.
observation. Thank you, Sarah. I think sometimes it's easy to think, I just allow it. Well, there is also more to this, and that's exactly what you brought up, that we allow, but we're also careful to not overwhelm ourselves and to get out into something more nourishing, and then maybe try again. So it's not a fixed thing, like
and because becoming more intimate with it doesn't mean that we need to drown in it as well. If it is extremely, we need to set the correct boundaries for ourselves, depending on our window of tolerance as well. Some people might be tolerating more than others, but also depending on your current circumstances, right? Your current energy levels, your current state of mind, you might be able to tolerate more or less. So setting the boundaries accordingly in terms of how much can you take in and how close can you get to what is happening. I think that's an important one. And yes, I wanted to say something else, but it just went away. So it will come back. It will come back.
Come back.
It'll come back.
So I'll add to that back to the action, action is something that can be small and incremental. Is this where you're going? Where you are
I
going?
just remembered. I'll just
Okay,
add
okay.
that then because it's commenting on what
Relevant.
you shared
Yeah.
as well. Yes.
Okay.
So just an important nuance is when we say we accept in the moment, we accept those difficult, emotions, we accept, it doesn't mean we are okay with it. Right? I think that's an important nuance we might have mentioned in the past. We might not like what's happening at all, and saying I accept doesn't mean suddenly I don't really it doesn't bother me anymore, and that's completely okay that this is happening. That is not what we're talking about. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about accepting that this is how life is right now. This is reality. This is actually what life is looking like
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're accepting that this is the case. But we're not accepting as in, just this is not bothering me anymore and I don't care
Yeah.
about it anymore. Or that's all completely fine and nobody needs to do anything about it. That is not the kind of acceptance we're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
bring that nuance there in the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. So acceptance doesn't mean agreeing. Acceptance means we're just right now accepting the reality and allowing our current feelings to have space.
Mhm,
That's accepting.
mhm. And we might
Yeah.
be
Yeah. Thank you.
accepting and we might be accepting and still have strong emotions like anger coming up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the acceptance can bring up more stuff and more emotions. So acceptance doesn't necessarily look very calm and peaceful and
Mm-hmm.
it's all good, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but
Yeah.
over to you for part two. I know you wanted to add to
Yeah.
that.
What I wanted to go back to is the action. And I think sometimes we have this idea that we need to take action that is big, that's going to quickly make a difference. But that may not be possible when we're talking about, wars, when we're talking about changing entire systems. Um, but we can still take the action that's possible right now within the circumstances we have right now. And that could be very locally with the people around us. So yeah, that action. And this reminds me of something we say often in our mindfulness circles, which is tending the part of the garden that we can reach, and that keeps coming up again and again because it's so relevant and so important.
So that's also an invitation to start a garden for someone who might not have one, someone who might not be involved in community or might, sometimes we need to start, we need to look at where we're at and see if we can add something to our life and create that garden where we can do a little bit. Maybe it's this volunteering, maybe it's this, reaching out to neighbors, whatever that might look like.
Mm,
What is that little part of the garden that you can reach and that you can create if it doesn't exist yet? Mm.
such a great idea. I love that insight. Start a garden. Okay, I'll think about that.
It should all be gardening, metaphorically
Yeah.
at least.
So,
And
so back to the workplace, just bringing our discussion back to mindfulness at work. You know, being stuck in resentment because of what's happening in the big picture around the world would make it hard for us to focus at work, to be productive, to stay motivated, to do the work. So it makes it very hard. Um, so so if, however, we reframe our work at work as being part of the garden that we can reach, that can change our mindset and it can loosen the grip of that resentment and transform the work into something meaningful that can take our attention and focus from things we have no control over into something that we do have some control over. So if you're struggling with this at work, staying focused, staying motivated, that could be an interesting mindset shift to say, this is my garden and I can do something in this garden. So that's what I want to mention.
And that actually ties in really nicely with what a lot of people might know under the name of the serenity prayer as well. I mean, it's the same, the guiding principles, right? So, may I have the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Can I
Hmm.
know the
Hmm.
difference between what I can change, however small it might be, and then what I can't, and then accepting that part.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is where all the mindfulness practice comes in handy, right? How do you find yourself in the middle of that and cultivating that wisdom to be able to differentiate between what you can and cannot change and influence,
Hmm.
and how you let that impact who you are as well, and how you show up in the workplace is a lifelong practice, really, I think.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So something
And maybe
you kind of
no, I just
alluded
wanted
to
to add something.
earlier,
Yeah.
um, which I think is worth also mentioning again, and that is this is all fluid. So this move between resentment and a more positive outlook and positive action, it's not a one-time thing, and it's not something we just do, and it's not easy.
Mm.
It's fluid. It's we may go back and forth. We may, like you said earlier, Sarah, we may test it a little bit, dip our toe in it, see how it is, and then go back and then try again. So it really reminds me of what we mentioned in a previous episode, which is it's really the practice of coming back
Mm.
again and again. And that's how we can discover a whole different way of being, and really loosen the grip that all the negativity might bring otherwise.
Mm. And coming back again and again to our intentions. That is where, like you mentioned, setting intentions is really powerful, and it's something we encourage people to do as well in the context of the workplace. In the morning, if you are choosing what you want to be working on for the day, in terms of what really matters and what's really important to you, maybe adding those intentions about those qualities that you want to cultivate. If you want to cultivate a little bit more openness or less resentment, or maybe adding these to your list, to your compass for the day, so the intention is there, and then you remind yourself again and again throughout the day. um, yes, the power of setting intentions. Thank you, Pierre, for this topic. It's very timely and very needed.
Yeah, yeah, and there's no perfect answer or easy answer to this topic and to these challenges, but the goal is to explore, to remain open-minded, and to share. And I like to add what you mentioned earlier, Sarah, to start a garden. If there is no easy one to tap into right now, start your garden, your community, your circle of trusted people. We call them mindfulness friends in our circle. And yeah, basically we can care deeply about what's happening in the world, and at the same time we can not let our resentment and negativity take over. So that would be my closing comment, and now I'll hand it to you, Sarah, to give us a closing comment.
I think you just did right there. I think you just did
Okay.
right there. I think maybe just a few key words again is it's intentions, hope. I think hope is a wonderfully uplifting force. Hope and connection. I think
Hmm.
connection is key.
Hmm.
Um, it might be connecting, with just one person, maybe one pet or one flower in the garden, whatever it is. Connection, hope, intentions are giving us a lot of strength to move through those very stormy landscapes that we have nowadays.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And going back to your quote from early on, I would say also adding listening to that quiet goodness that's out there that doesn't get enough press.
Mm. And the last sentence of that quote that I didn't mention at the start of the podcast is continue living the best way you know how.
Mm. That is our closing statement. You just
It
said
is.
it, Sarah. Okay. Continue living the best way you know how. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, everyone.